Let's get to some breaking news now about Pharmac's switch of epilepsy drugs. About 11,000 people, most with epilepsy but some with mental health conditions, are switching to a generic form of the drug called Logem. RNZ investigative reporter Guyon Espiner has been following the story and he joins me now in the studio. Tēnā koe, Guyon. What's the latest about this situation?
Kia ora, Lisa. Well, what we have learned today is that MedSafe have published this advice on their website regarding suspected adverse reactions to Lamotrigine after switching brands. And the key thing to note, sadly, is that there are 3 reports reporting death as an outcome. Now, as you mentioned in your intro there, more than 10,000 people are switching epilepsy drugs. They're changing brands because Pharmac has pulled the funding for the 2 main brands, Lamictal and Arrow. Now, 95% of people with epilepsy were on those 2 main brands. They're all being forced to switch to this Logem brand because that's the only one that is going to be funded. There were warnings that switching brands, changing brands, can be dangerous in some circumstances, and there have been a lot of adverse reactions to that. Sadly, now we learn today 3 deaths have been reported as possible outcomes for this brand switch. We did know about one. We spoke to a mother. Listeners at RNZ may well have heard the story of the mother who lost her 23-year-old daughter, and she suspected that switching brands of epilepsy medicine was a result of that she had a fall and that led to her death. We now find that there are 3 deaths potentially being attributed to this brand switch. All are under investigation by the coroner, so the exact cause of death cannot be ruled on at this point.
So do we know anything about these 3 cases? One, which you have obviously reported on, 2 additional ones. Do we know over what time frame they may have been taking the medication, if there were any other earlier problems signalled?
We do know that the switch has been happening over a few months, and the other important thing to know is that of those 11,000 people we talked about, only about half have made the switch so far. So this process has got a way to run yet, and there are many tens of adverse reactions, and now we learn potentially 3 deaths. Now, I know that the Minister of Health is now taking this very seriously. I understand from my investigations and the time that we've had to look into this, because it is just developing, the Minister of Health now is taking this extremely seriously. I am told that Minister of Health David Clark is asking serious questions of officials about this, and there is going to be close monitoring of it. But what is clear is that there are some alarm bells ringing about this. I do want to reiterate again, we cannot say that the brand switch caused this. We don't know, and it is sadly the case that people do die of what is called sudden unexplained death in epilepsy. It does happen. It's about 10 cases, I think, a year. It's possible that these people could have died anyway. It is important to say that. We don't want to alarm people. But there have been many adverse reactions and now 3 deaths potentially being attributed to the brand change. And why are they doing this? They're doing it to save money.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that.
What are the figures again?
Well, the figures are $30 million over 5 years. So what they do is they put this out for tender. Lamotrigine is the active ingredient in these drugs which helps you prevent having a seizure. Now, Pharmac says, I'll put this out to tender, see if I can get a cheaper price. Mylan was the company that makes the Logem drug. They came back and said, I can give you X price, it'll save $30 million. Now, that involved switching 95% of the people over to this generic drug. They knew. Now, MedSafe told them, don't do it. Don't do it, Pharmac, they said. It's too risky. International best practice, don't switch people on this class of drugs. They said to Pharmac, do not do it.
So
Pharmac went ahead and did it anyway.
So
and
without
now we've
being
got a
crass,
situation.
they decided that the saving was worth the switch.
Well, they did, and they actually, and it isn't a crass question because it's exactly the question we put to people on the Pharmac committee who made this decision. They said, we believe it is worth the risk. Not because they're heartless people. They believed the scientific evidence was that there should not be a scientific reason, a clinical reason why this should cause a problem. Having said that, In Britain, they don't do it. In America, they don't do it. Best practice is not to do it. MedSafe said don't do it. Pharmac did it. They are now going to have to answer serious questions, with 3 deaths being reported as an outcome potentially and many adverse reactions. This is going to get very, very serious for
So
Pharmac.
what happens then, Guyon? So obviously they've made this notification. It's out there for everyone to read and see now that you're reporting it. What's the advice to the people who are taking this medication?
Well, that's right.
Is it clear?
Well, that's right. I mean, they say, and this is CALM, which is the Centre for Adverse Reactions Monitoring, I think it stands for. They say that this is what people are experiencing. Patients who have received a change in brand are, in some cases, they've been seizure-free and they're having breakthrough seizures. Changes in mood symptoms in patients taking Lamotrigine for bipolar, because as you said, it's sometimes people with mental health issues. There have been some reports of suicidal ideation or suicide attempts. Other reported reactions of headaches and hot flushes and memory losses and rashes, tiredness, that sort of thing. They say that you should monitor. You should go to CALM immediately and ring the number and report any issues you've had, and of course talk to your medical professional. They say that these reports are confidential. You can share this information confidentially with CALM, but that you should report it and go immediately to a medical professional if you have an issue with this brand switch.
Thanks for bringing us up to date. That's investigative reporter Guyon Espiner there, just updating us on the situation with Pharmac's switch of epilepsy drugs. And as Guyon was saying, there's some adverse reactions reported and now 3 deaths recorded that are under investigation.